So hi, I'm Mark, this is Mark's Tech Vlogs on YouTube, and I'm coming at you from a different place in my office today because I want to talk about something a little bit different, and I also want to be able to refer to notes on the monitor in front of me. So today I'm going to bring you guys a review of the CareerFoundry Full Stack Web Development course. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a remote part-time way of learning web development in order to hopefully get a job at the end of it. And I'll talk more about that and the content throughout this video. But I want to start this video by saying two things. The first is to say that I have managed to get a job as a result of doing this course, but the content you're going to hear me talk about and the review that you're going to hear me talk about, I very deliberately wrote before that happened. So I wrote this review at the end of the course about 2 months ago when it was all fresh in my mind and before there was a positive outcome for me, because I wanted it to be as neutral as possible. So yes, there's been a good outcome from the course for me, and I'll talk about that in another video. But when I wrote a lot of these notes, that wasn't the case. So hopefully this is an impartial review. And then the second reason I wanted to write it is because if you're like me, you spent a lot of time looking around at boot camps and you're trying to work out what you should be doing, you'll have noticed that there's not many independent reviews. You obviously got sites like Course Report that have loads of reviews from people. They are generally quite positive, which always makes me skeptical. And that's not just for the CareerFoundry course, it's for all the boot camps. They're generally really positive. So as someone who's quite skeptical, I wanted to try and find independent reviews, and I couldn't really find many at all. I was even looking through kind of like Twitter searches for people talking about different boot camps at different points. So I wanted to make this as an independent review. I'm not being paid by CareerFoundry to do this. I'm not being asked by CareerFoundry to do this. This is just part of my online channel that I've already got on YouTube, where I share with you guys reviews of kind of tech related stuff that I get up to. What I am going to say, however, is that I will be making a little bit of money through this video, as I do with all my videos, because it's monetized on YouTube, which means the Google ads that you see help me just be able to continue making these videos as a side hustle. The other thing I want to say is I have put an affiliate link to the course below, which means if you watch this video and read some other stuff about the course and then decide to sign up and you click the link that I've provided, I believe you get a discount, but I also get a little bit of money as well. This is just something that CareerFoundry offer all of their students and graduates for inviting their friends. So it's not something that I have been purposefully given for this video. It's just something I've already got that I'm using to hopefully make a little bit on top, which would be lovely. So if you do click that link, thank you very much. But this is about helping you make the right decision for you and providing some honest feedback rather than just trying to get you to click a link. So if you click it, that's great. If you don't, that's great. Please just make sure you spend plenty of time researching and do what's right for you. So let's crack on with this. And I'm going to talk about three things throughout this video. It might be quite long, so do stick with me, but I'm hoping to keep it under 20 minutes. So firstly, I want to talk about why I chose the CareerFoundry Bootcamp. Secondly, I want to talk about the course content. And then thirdly, I want to talk about the course support. So let's kick off and talk about the course and why I chose the CareerFoundry one. So if, like me, you're looking around at boot camps, then you will know that there are all sorts of boot camps around, particularly for getting into tech-related fields. And a lot of these are face-to-face immersive boot camps. So the idea being that you quit your job and you spend 3 months basically treating your boot camp like a job. So you work every day, you travel into kind of the campus, you meet with other students, and it's a very immersive group experience. And of course, the hope is at the end of that, you get a job out of it and that happens. But for me, as I was looking at it, in part, the idea of giving up my job prior to having something else was a little bit too scary. And I also found that actually the idea of spending, say, 10 grand upwards on a course, plus travel, plus the idea of having no income for, let's say, 6 months as a realistic time frame to finish a course and get a job, it just wasn't feasible for me. It wasn't a commitment I was willing to make, and it just didn't fit around with where I am with life. So I started looking at remote boot camps, and there's a whole number of these. Some are again kind of face-to-face, part-time. So the face-to-face part-time ones, even the online ones, the timings just didn't fit around this. And then there are some self-paced ones, which is where I came across CareerFoundry, and a couple of other ones out there. So there's Hyper on Dev, and a couple I can't remember. In terms of fees, because let's be honest, cost is an important factor, CareerFoundry or when I signed up, they kind of sat right in the middle of the remote self-paced fees. So it was, I think, £3,000 to sign up, but I got a discount because I paid it all up front. So I just used 0% for 18 months credit card. So that saved me some money, and I also got a discount that they were running because I was talking to one of their student advisors beforehand just to find out more about the course, and that enabled me to access an extra discount, which is really useful. So it's certainly worth talking to them just to find out more about the course. And so that brought it down to about 2,500. If you look at the course now on their website, it has gone up to about £5,000, depending on the way that you pay. So it's worth kind of mentioning that price increase, although not much about the course has changed. So I don't think the content has changed since I started, but you do get access to more mentors throughout the course. And I'll talk about that in the third section of this video. So I in part chose CareerFoundry because of the cost. I in part chose it because it was self-paced and remote, so I could do it in my own time over evenings and weekends, and it requires a kind of 15 to 20 hour commitment per week in order to complete it in the 7 months they give you. And I found that this was about right, possibly a little bit too generous, so you could probably do it on slightly less if you wanted to. The other reason that I signed up to them is that they have a job guarantee, and if you look around at boot camps, you'll see that loads of them have these job guarantees. And the problem with a lot of them is that they have a lot of hoops to jump through. So there's one particular very well-known boot camp, and their job guarantee, if you look through the terms and conditions, doesn't just expect you to apply for X amount of jobs a week, but it expects you to be writing blogs and reaching out to people on LinkedIn, and there's just so many hoops to jump through. It kind of feels like you would never ever be applicable to actually get that money back if you weren't to get a job out of it. And I'm not a big fan of lots of hoops to jump through. Whereas one of the things that I really liked about the CareerFoundry one is they basically said in order to be applicable for your money back if you don't get a job within 6 months of finishing the course, you need to be checking in with your career mentor regularly, you need to be applying for 5 jobs a week, you need to be near a particular area. So you need to be somewhere where the population is high enough. So for me, here in England, it's London, and that's about an hour from me. So that's a commutable distance. So do make sure you check those terms and conditions. But actually, they're not too many hoops to jump through. And so for me, that was almost reassurance that they believed in the product they were offering, rather than offering so many hoops for you to jump through. You kind of go, yeah, but you're never going to give me my money back. Obviously, I haven't had to claim that, and so I have no idea if they ever give refunds, but I just felt like their terms and conditions were far more transparent and achievable than other boot camps. And then the kind of final 2 reasons that I chose the course, in part was the content, which I'm going to talk about, but they largely use a JavaScript stack throughout. So boot camps tend to teach one of 3 languages. So they tend to teach you Python, Ruby, or JavaScript. And Ruby and JavaScript are the most common ones they teach you. And these are the programming languages for the back end of a website. So the stuff on the server. So when you log in, the stuff that sets your credentials in a database or checks that or stores data, all that kind of stuff. And I went with JavaScript in part because JavaScript is growing in popularity. So it's growing massively, and you can use it on the front end of the website, so the stuff you see in your browser, but also in the back end, so the complicated stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And there's so many frameworks out there, so kind of like ways of using JavaScript that people have created for doing all sorts of things, from creating mobile apps to creating websites that do a little bit more and behave like apps themselves, to even creating things like Alexa skills. So I went for JavaScript because I felt like it was the growing language at the time, and it still is, it's still growing, although there are lots of websites out there using Python and Ruby, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. But I also picked it because you use JavaScript on the front end of a website as well. I felt like it would enable me to really understand deeply a programming language, rather than kind of knowing a bit of this and a bit of that. And then the final reason was that they offer you a career mentor at the end, so someone who helps you get a job out of it. They also, throughout the course, offer you a tutor and a mentor. So both those people, the tutor and the mentor, are people who've worked in a tech industry for 5 years. The tutor typically marks your work, so someone is looking over your code, and someone who's looking over your code who knows what they're doing and someone you can reach out to when you get stuck. And then your mentor is someone you connect with sort of maybe 5-6 times, maybe more now, throughout the course. And they're there really, they look at your final pieces of work for each module, but they also offer you advice and share what it's like. And they're just a person to champion you and a person you can ask questions to throughout the process of the course and trying to make that transition into tech. So let's talk about the course content itself. So as I said, it is all self-paced, it's all online, it's remote. So CareerFoundry are based in Berlin, but all the course content is in English and it's written really, really well. Essentially, when you log in, you have a screen that shows your progress. It shows the date you're currently due to finish. It shows how long you've got left on the course, and it splits up the kind of individual achievements into how many you need to get done each week. So it's a way of helping you keep on track. From there, you can also message your mentor or your tutor and booking calls, although you quite often message them via the Slack channel instead of the CareerFoundry platform. And then within that student portal, you can see all of the course content and how you're doing. So the course content is broken down into achievements, and each of those achievements fits within a module. So I think there were 6 modules in the full stack web development bootcamp, and each of those had roughly 10 achievements, give or take 2 or 3, depending on the particular module. So the way it works is you click into one of the modules, it tells you roughly how long the reading is going to take, and then there's a task at the end and a quiz at the end. What I did find is that if you try and code along with some of the stuff as you read it, it obviously takes longer to read it than they say it will, but then the task takes less time at the end. All in all, it's laid out really well. It's pretty much all text, but there are some images and a couple of videos. But things are broken up, they're explained, there's examples, and it's just really easy to follow. Right at the end of each achievement, you've got a quiz. So there's 5 multiple choice questions for you to see how your learning has gone and see if you've really understood some of the concepts and if there's stuff you need to revisit. And then you've got a task. And so typically throughout a module, each of your achievements will build up to something bigger. So in the first one, you are building up a portfolio as you go through. And so you're doing bits and pieces as you go on throughout it, and you're building up that portfolio website. At the end of each achievement, once you've completed the task, you submit it, or if you get stuck, they do encourage you to submit it at that point as well. Your tutor will then look through your code and your submission, and if you're stuck, they'll be able to say, well, this is what you perhaps need to have a look at, see if you can fix that bug and help you understand that a bit more. Or if you pass it, they will give you some feedback and say, that's great, maybe you'd like to read this as well to understand these concepts. And for me, having someone at the kind of other end of that service who could help me if things got tricky, but also someone who could encourage me throughout was really helpful. And knowing that person works as a developer as their career was particularly encouraging, because I knew that there was someone in the sector that I wanted to get into who was looking at my code throughout. And again, right when you get to the end of each module, that final task goes to your mentor, and they typically record a video sharing what they think of it, suggesting improvements and things they like, and they're genuinely just really encouraging. And then you have a chat with them. So you organise a Skype call and you just talk more about the project. You can ask them all sorts of questions. You can ask if there's other things you should be learning outside of a course, all that kind of thing. And so the course content teaches you HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and some JavaScript frameworks such as React and React Native, and a little bit of Vue. And I felt like it was the right pace throughout. The other thing I really liked was that they seem to spoon feed you less as you get further on in the course. They start off obviously telling you everything you need to do, and then it felt like they were giving you less of that as you went on, which meant you were having to go off and look up how to do things. So learning to read documentation for different frameworks and code bases, having to work out how to find answers for problems when you get stuck, and all those kind of softer coding skills that are so useful if you're building your own project. So if you were to decide to build your own website or an app, you're going to need to know how to find answers to questions you've got. And so reducing that kind of level of spoon feeding throughout the course, for me, really built my confidence in learning how to read documentation better and how to find the answers to things that I was looking for. And so I think that's a really healthy way of putting together some course content. The other stuff they put in is all to do with what it's like to work in the tech industry and to contribute to the tech world. So there's stuff around different ways companies run their teams. There's stuff around test-driven development. There's stuff around actually how you might contribute to something that's open source or work with others. All things that are really useful and really help you have a bigger understanding rather than just an understanding of code. So I'm aware that's all very positive. My only criticism of the content was around one particular section where they try and teach you some Redux in the middle of React. Don't worry if you don't know what they are. React is a JavaScript framework to help you build websites. So Facebook is an example of a website with React because Facebook built the framework. Although they'd also call it a library rather than a framework, but don't worry about the differences between the two. And Redux is a way of managing data throughout your application. So if you've got, say, a user profile that you need to have on every single one of your pages, it's a way of passing that data to all of them without having to duplicate it. And when they explained that on the course and tried to get you to use it within your React application, I just found myself utterly confused. And so what I did is I went off and I found some articles about Redux and some tutorials that talked me through just using it with some simple HTML, CSS and JavaScript, and then talked me through using it in React, which is slightly different. And so what I felt like was that gave me a solid basis and enabled me to go back to that project and understand what I was doing better. And I think that's really important. It's really important in a course and for any kind of learning and any kind of work in tech, that if at any point you don't understand something, that you take the time to try and understand it, that you ask people like your tutor if you're in a course for help, but also that you try and go away and find answers, try and break down what it is you're trying to do and go back to basics, because that understanding is crucial. So that is the content of the course, and I've talked a little bit about this third thing I'm going to talk about, which is the support throughout the course, but let's talk about that a bit more in depth. So as I said, you get a tutor and a mentor throughout your course. They're people who've worked in the industry for 5 years, so they've got lots of experience, and they are there just to root for you throughout. So your tutor marks your code and offers feedback, and I've talked about that already. I had a great tutor who was really helpful, really quick to mark things. So the expectation is that they're done within, I think, 48 hours, CareerFoundry say. And he was typically kind of well ahead of that schedule, which was fantastic for enabling me to crack on with the course. And he gave some really helpful feedback. Mentors I had a slightly different experience with, so I had 2 mentors throughout the course. I think because my first one went a bit AWOL, so I had a new mentor when I was about 3/4 through the course. What I will say about the mentoring thing is that in principle it's a really good idea, and in particular my second mentor was brilliant. She was so helpful, so encouraging, really helpful in terms of giving me other things to go and look up and to read, but also in terms of saying, actually, I think you're ready to look at jobs even though you haven't finished the course yet. Although the coronavirus pandemic hit, and so that never actually happened, but she was so helpful and so encouraging. And so that was really helpful. But one thing I would say is that what CareerFoundry need to do is provide more guidance for those mentoring sessions. So my professional background when I'm not making tech videos is in youth work, and so I've mentored youth workers and teenagers, and what you need is a plan to make those sessions work, especially early on. So you get to a point in a mentoring relationship where there is momentum and you can just chat and it doesn't really matter if you've got an agenda or not. But actually when you're first building a mentoring relationship, having a sort of session outline is really useful. And so actually I think probably CareerFoundry need to produce some more structured guidance for both mentors and students. in order to get the most out of those mentoring sessions. And in part, that's probably just because of who I am, and I quite like a bit of structure. But I think that would be a really useful thing to look at in the future. And if you sign up to the course, then I'd encourage you to either kind of really persist and ask them for that, or go off and make your own mentoring plan and to say to your mentor, this is what I'm thinking. Is there anything else we should cover? And just to open up the mentoring relationship like that, and to say, look, this is what I want to get out of it. What do you think I should be trying to get out of it? And then the final thing to talk about in terms of student support is the career support. So when you get halfway through your main course, they give you access to their career course, which is, I think, 14 achievements that talk you through everything from how you share your story as a career changer, to where to find jobs to apply for, to writing a CV and a cover letter, to interview questions, all that kind of stuff that is really, really useful. If I'm honest, it feels a little bit cheesy in places, but actually it's really good advice, and there's some really good stuff in there, and it's really helpful. So if you are working through that course, I would encourage you to persist with that. The most helpful part of that for me is that you get a career mentor come coach type person assigned to you as well. So someone who marks each of your tasks. So when you write your CV, someone who looks through it and makes suggestions. When you finalize your portfolio, your LinkedIn profile, someone who looks through that and again makes helpful, encouraging suggestions. And of course, this is always going to depend on who you are as a person, who your career mentor is as a person, and how well you get on. But my career mentor was absolutely brilliant. He was incredibly encouraging. He marked work kind of on time. He was really up for just getting on Skype and talking through things that needed to be tweaked that he thought might help out. He was really honest in saying, you know, actually once you finish the career course and the main course, the support we offer varies. So, you know, if you're applying for lots and lots of jobs and you're not even hearing back from them, he'll sit down and work through your CV and your cover letter with you to tweak it and see what else you need to adjust to try and get that feedback from companies. One of the most helpful things for me was that he was someone I could go to when I was offered an interview or a task, just to check in and say, this has been done, is there anything else you'd advise? So one of the most helpful things he said was he talked about how when you do a kind of like a code test for a company, so if I ask you to produce a website for them or something like that, just to see how you work, is to add in comments of things you might do to improve that project in the future. So if you don't get everything done in time or things like that, just add notes to say this is what I would do, because that shows your pattern of thinking, and that was really helpful for me. And he also did a practice interview, which we did over Skype, and it was a little bit unnerving because there was a sense in which we were sort of playing role play, and I hate role play, but actually it was really, really helpful. And he based the questions based on a particular job that I've been offered an interview for, so it was really good to have that support as well. So I think that's it. If you're looking for a self-paced full stack web development bootcamp, then I'd certainly go and have a look at the CareerFoundry one and see if it's right for you. I found the kind of human side of it, especially considering it's a remote course, really helpful. It was good to have a tutor and a mentor, and I know that there were people looking through my code rather than me just writing stuff and an automated system passing it for me, because it meant that people could see how you did it and techniques and really tailor the feedback. And I think that's something really valuable to have. I also think the career support is really useful, and I like that they've got a relatively simple, transparent job guarantee process. So that's it. If you guys have any questions at all about the course, then do stick them below and I will come down in the comments. I get notifications when I get comments, so I'll come and answer those and try and offer you guys some advice. Do consider liking this video and subscribing to this channel, because it does help me out on YouTube. If you are interested in how I went from being a youth worker to getting a web development job in the middle of a pandemic, then I've made another video which you can check out on this channel as well. And I will see you guys again soon.